It began with a question, not one spoken aloud, but one that echoed deep in the silence of the human soul. A question etched in starlight, whispered from the black canvas above us since the dawn of time. What's out there? We looked up, always have. Long before rockets, satellites, or spacecraft, we stared at the night sky and felt its pull, mysterious, haunting, magnetic. We mapped constellations in firelight and imagined gods riding the moon. But no matter how deeply we dreamed, Earth kept us grounded. And then, something changed. It wasn't a grand proclamation or a worldwide celebration. It was a war. World War II was tearing the planet apart. And amid that chaos, a weapon was built. A machine meant for destruction. But unknowingly, it became something else. The first key to unlock the sky. The German V-2 rocket, built for violence, became the first man-made object to touch space, piercing through Earth's atmosphere like a steel spear thrown from below. When that rocket soared past the invisible line we now call the Kármán line, just over 100 kilometers up, humanity's story changed. We didn't know it then, not really. But a door had creaked open, and on the other side of that door was everything. 4 years later, from 105 kilometers above Earth, the first pictures of our planet from space were captured. Grainy, blurry, beautiful. For the first time, we saw home from afar. Not a map, not a globe, but the real thing. It was humbling, quietly revolutionary. Earth wasn't just a place anymore. It was fragile, finite, floating. But we weren't ready to send ourselves yet. So we sent others, small passengers, brave and unwilling. In 1949, Albert, a rhesus monkey, became the first vertebrate in space. He never made it back. The world barely noticed, but the sky had begun its cruel initiation. One marked by sacrifice, wonder, and the constant ache of ambition. While America sent monkeys, the Soviet Union turned to dogs. 2 years after Albert, they achieved what the U.S. could not. They brought their passengers home alive. The names were Saigon and Desik, heroes whose stories faded into footnotes. But their survival meant something. It meant space wasn't instantly fatal. It meant there was hope. And then came Laika. She was no trained pilot or chosen icon. She was a stray, found wandering the cold streets of Moscow. Her story should have ended in silence, but instead she became immortal. In 1957, she was strapped into a capsule, sealed into Sputnik 2, and launched toward the stars. She became the first living creature to orbit Earth. She didn't survive. There was never a plan for her to return. And yet, her sacrifice wasn't in vain. Laika didn't just test the limits of technology. She shattered the boundary between Earth and space for all of us. Her heartbeat echoed beyond orbit. Her breath told us we could survive out there, if we dared. That same year, the world heard something strange. A signal, a rhythm, a pulse. The sound of Sputnik 1, the very first artificial satellite, broadcasting beeps as it circled Earth again and again. Tiny, metallic, persistent. It didn't do much, but it said everything. We were no longer earthbound. Something built by human hands was now circling our planet. And with that, space was no longer a dream. It had become territory. It was a quiet war. This new space race. A war of symbols and pride and possibilities. And the world watched breathlessly as the race sped forward. In 1961, a man climbed into a capsule and left the world behind. His name was Yuri Gagarin. When the rocket ignited and the sky turned to fire, he wasn't just flying a machine. He was carrying the hopes of every human who had ever looked up and wondered. One full orbit, that's all. But when he came back, the world was different. The impossible had happened. A man had touched the stars and returned to tell the tale. And it wasn't just him. 2 years later, it was a woman's turn, Valentina Tereshkova. She spent almost 3 days alone in space, circling Earth 48 times. A single human, suspended above an entire planet, surrounded by the endless black. She became the first and only woman to fly solo into the void. Alone, but not forgotten. With every mission, we grew bolder. In 1966, the Soviets reached out to the moon. Luna 10 slipped into orbit. the first human-made object to circle another world. It was surreal. We hadn't even walked on the moon, but already we had claimed its skies. Then came 1968, a time of turmoil on Earth, but triumph above it. Apollo 8 launched with three brave souls, Borman, Lovell, Anders. They were the first humans to leave Earth orbit, to see our planet as a distant marble, to witness the moon up close. And when they turned their cameras back, they captured the Earthrise. A blue world, peeking over a gray, lifeless horizon. For the first time, we saw our home as something small, something precious, and yet something very alone. And then came the moment the whole world stopped to breathe. It was July 1969. The air was thick with tension, and every television on Earth seemed tuned to one broadcast. A shaky black and white image flickered across the screen. A voice crackled through the static. "I'm going to step off the LM now." And then, silence. One small step. Neil Armstrong's boot pressed into the powdery lunar dust, and in that fragile instant, humanity wasn't divided by borders or politics or war. We were one species, staring up at a cold, distant rock, and we had touched it. For 21 hours, Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked where no one had walked before. Their companion, Michael Collins, orbited above in solitude, watching, waiting. The moon had always been there, haunting us in poetry and myth. Now it bore our footprints. The silence of space had heard a human voice. We had reached farther than ever before. But we weren't done. In 1971, the Soviet Union launched Salyut 1, the first space station. For the first time, humans didn't just visit space. They stayed. It was clumsy, cramped, and uncertain. But it was a beginning, a foothold, a promise that space could become more than a destination. It could be a home. The following year, NASA pushed the boundaries even further. Pioneer 10, small, silent, determined, was flung from Earth's grip with one simple mission: go. It became the first object we ever launched that would leave the solar system entirely. It drifted past Jupiter, capturing images we'd never seen before. And then, silence. It kept going, farther, farther, until its voice faded into nothingness. Even now it travels on, alone in the dark. But space wasn't just beauty. It wasn't just stars and wonder. It was danger and loss. In 1986, the Challenger space shuttle took off into a perfect blue sky. On board were 7 people: engineers, pilots, scientists, and a teacher named Krista McAuliffe. The world watched in joy, then in horror. Just 73 seconds after launch, the shuttle exploded. The sky turned to fire, and everything changed. There were no survivors. Space had always been risky. But now we felt the pain in real time. It wasn't just a mission lost, it was lives, dreams, families. And for a moment, the world wondered if the stars were worth it. But even in grief, we continued, because wonder is stronger than fear. In 1990, Hubble opened its eye. A telescope. Yes, but more than that. A window. Hubble didn't just show us new stars, it redefined how we saw the universe. It captured storms on Jupiter, galaxies colliding, stars being born. It even gave us the first clear view of deep space, a silent ocean of light and time. And in one haunting photograph, it revealed hundreds of galaxies in a single sliver of sky. We weren't just a planet in the dark. We were part of something vast beyond imagining. The 90s pushed us forward in new ways. In 1997, NASA's Pathfinder landed on Mars. It brought with it a tiny robotic rover, Sojourner, small, clunky, and determined. And yet it moved. On another world under a foreign sky, it rolled over Martian dust and sent back images no human had ever seen. The robot had gone where we could not, but it wouldn't be alone for long. By 1998, nations came together. The International Space Station rose like a puzzle built among the stars, piece by piece, hand by hand. Russians and Americans, Europeans, Japanese, Canadians, working not as rivals but as family. Above Earth, their voices echoed in different languages, but their mission was the same: to learn, to endure, to belong in space. And while they built above, probes reached deeper. In 2004, Cassini arrived at Saturn. Its cameras revealed a planet of impossible beauty, golden rings, icy moons, storms the size of Earth. And hiding among those rings was Enceladus, a moon that sprayed water into space like a geyser, hinting at oceans beneath. Life, maybe, or the conditions for it, a promise in the cold. In 2009, Kepler began its search, not for stars but for shadows, for tiny flickers of light where a planet passed in front of its sun. It looked for other Earths, and it found thousands, worlds we never dreamed existed, some too hot, some too cold, and some just right. Somewhere out there, another Earth might wait, and it didn't stop there. In 2011, Messenger mapped Mercury, painting the closest planet to the Sun in new light. 2 years later, Voyager 1, a tiny spacecraft launched decades earlier, crossed the invisible line into interstellar space. No fanfare, no explosion, just data, a signal from the quiet. And that's when we looked back. From 6 billion kilometers away, Voyager had turned its camera toward home. What it saw was no grand continent or city or flag. It saw a dot, a pale blue dot. Carl Sagan once called it a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. That's where everyone we've ever known lived and died, that tiny shimmering speck. And in that single image, the universe reminded us of both our fragility and our wonder. Because even from that distance, we were there. We had reached the edge of everything we knew, and still we weren't done. By the time we reached the 2010s, space wasn't just a frontier anymore. It was a question that kept asking itself over and over, with every new launch, every photograph, every mission. What else is out there? And maybe more hauntingly, how far are we willing to go to find out? In 2014, something incredible happened. A spacecraft, built not to land on a planet or orbit a moon, but to chase a comet, finally caught its target. The Rosetta mission had traveled for over 10 years, tracing a looping, impossible path through the solar system to reach a rock hurtling through space at terrifying speed. And when it got there, it didn't just observe, it reached out. Its lander, Philae, touched down on the icy surface of Comet 67P, bouncing, sliding, clinging to existence. And for the first time in human history, we stood on a comet. It was no bigger than a mountain. But to us, it was monumental, a frozen remnant from the birth of the solar system, a piece of the past still flying through the future. And we were there, if only briefly. The years that followed were filled with more firsts. In 2015, NASA's Dawn spacecraft completed something we'd never done before. Orbited not just one, but two distant worlds in the asteroid belt, Vesta and Ceres. Places too small to be planets, too big to be rocks. They were ancient, battered, mysterious. Dawn gave them names, shapes, character, and through its lens we saw the raw bones of creation. That same year, a tiny world on the far edge of our solar system finally came into focus, Pluto. For so long, it had been a blurry speck, a mystery demoted from planet status. But when New Horizons swept past in 2015, the entire world paused. We saw mountains of ice, plains of frozen nitrogen, a heart-shaped scar on its surface, like a message written just for us. Pluto wasn't cold and dead. It was alive in its silence, full of surprises, full of soul. And just when we thought we'd seen it all, the universe showed us something we'd only imagined. A black hole. In 2019, the Event Horizon Telescope, a global network of observatories acting as one, captured the unseeable, a fiery ring of light blurred by gravity surrounding a shadow. The silhouette of the unknown. It wasn't just a picture, it was proof. Proof that the monsters we theorized about, the ones hiding in the center of galaxies, were real. We looked into the void, and the void stared back. But for every answer, more questions rose. What about life? Not intelligent civilizations or alien cities, but the spark, water, warmth, the whisper of something breathing in the dark. The moons Enceladus and Europa, with oceans sealed beneath layers of ice, have become beacons. We keep sending probes, instruments, cameras, hoping that one day a signal might come back saying, yes, you are not alone. And still, we dream of Mars. It's dusty, dangerous, hostile, but it's close, reachable. For decades, we've sent machines, rovers with wheels and wills of their own. They've wandered its red deserts, climbed its hills, weathered its storms. They've taken selfies and sung birthday songs into the void. But the next step is us. NASA's Artemis program is more than a return to the moon. It's a statement that we are not done, that we are going back, not just to touch, but to stay, to build, to learn, to prepare for something even greater. Because beyond the moon lies Mars, and beyond Mars, who knows? We've launched our voices into space, golden records aboard Voyager, carrying music, greetings, the sounds of Earth. In case someone, somewhere, someday hears us, maybe they'll know we were here, that we wondered, that we reached, that we cared. And maybe they'll wonder about us too. From the roar of rockets in wartime to the silent glide of satellites across the night sky. From the sacrifice of Laika to the giant leap of Armstrong. From burning shuttle debris to the quiet drift of interstellar probes. Space has always been more than science. It is a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting not what we are, but what we can be. Curious, brave, united. Because in the end, space exploration isn't about planets or stars or comets. It's about us. It's about standing on the edge of everything we know and choosing not to back away, but to leap. Not because it's safe, not because it's easy, but because something in us refuses to stop asking the question, what's out there? And more importantly, who are we when we go looking for it?